Yeah, we don't want to get copyrighted, do we? We better shut off the tunes, man. I can't help it. I can't wait until I can afford copyrights or whatever, because then I'm just gonna be jamming all the time, just paying for it like I'm at a strip club. It's the way. It's the way music is. It's important. It's very important, at least to this fellow. All right, what's going on, everybody? Let's close down this window, Jason, and let's find chat. There's chat. Almost. No, I don't want studio chat. We need public. All right. What's going on, everybody? We're going to get together, as we are doing now, digitally, this evening, and we're going to keep up my consistency of three. Uh-oh, Rumble. Man, look at that. Producers on the job today. Thank you for the reminder, sir. You are connected. Start stream. Okay, Rumble, you should be kicking along with us here in a second. There's Rumble. Rumble in the Driftwood jungle. All right, everybody. So where was I before the producer rudely interrupted us to remind me that Rumble requires an extra step or two, which we're happy to make because we've got some viewers that are joining us on Rumble, and we're happy to have you. Look at me speaking in the plural for my inside producer. This is how. Well, let's be honest. Mental illness, we passed that long ago. So, might as well just be upfront about it, right? Question my sanity. Now I'll just start having a full-on conversation with them. Question my sanity in front of them, will you? Well, man, listen. All right, welcome everybody. We're gonna do. That's where I was. I was telling you guys what we're doing tonight. Thank you. See, you have a point. I'm gonna make you wordless from now on, so they understand better what's going on, and they'll keep watching. Okay, don't be offended. We were talking about tonight's episode is the third for the week. I said I'd do 3 a week, and that's what I'm trying to do. So that means whether or not I necessarily have a plan in place. Mr. Graham Hancock put out his latest interview yesterday. It came with a health notice and update, which, those things are important, but you also don't want to, words are important too. And you don't want to give things that don't do that much energy, right? That much more, But it does seem to be something that he will see himself through, be seen through. It's just fine. So we won't linger on that part, though the bit we're going to watch, we'll let his words tell you about it. Yeah, we're going to hang out, and we're going to see where that conversation draws us. I tried to listen to this interview yesterday. I was trying to do a lot of things yesterday. I was trying to watch a video for Ricardo that he's editing, and no, I can't show you that yet. But it's good stuff from. I can't even. I don't know if I can say, so I better not. I was going to say what it's from, but bravo. Don't say anything, but bravo. So I was trying to listen to this, and I listened to, I'd say, about an hour, 15, which leaves something like just under 30 minutes left. And I went ahead and checked the chapters, and I noticed that, it's not really one of those where you need to have been watching the whole time. So my thought process, which, is not extensive, granted, my thought process was that we might just pick up. It seems the conversation was shifting anyway, where I left off. And that way, those of you that have yet to watch this on your own, you'll have the whole first hour and a half to go watch, which is really good. I like the way this dude does his show. It's pretty cool. I've never watched him before. I've been told that he's never really done a guest of, let's call it, this type before. So that may explain why I've never come across him, but it was really well done. So point is, I didn't want to I figured if we pick up where I'm at and we watch like the end, which seems to be a good conversation starter material, which after all is kind of what we're after, right? That then it leaves the whole first bit for everybody to go check out. Now, chat, if you have something different to say, you're being quiet. It's okay. Just treat you like the producer. I'll just imagine there's chat there, and it works fine. I promise. Sometimes better. So we'll just say, welcome everybody. I can see there's somebody there lurking. What's going on, lurker? Do you ever feel weird when you're lurking, and the guy you're watching is like talking to you, like specifically? That probably never happens, does it? Because I can tell there's only like one or two of you in there. That's probably pretty rare, on all these services. So I'm talking to you. Good evening and welcome. We've still got about 4 or 5 minutes. I usually give it to about 10 minutes where we kind of hang out. So I'll just continue telling you about what we're going to do. And we're going to wait and we'll dive right into it here in about 10 minutes. See if anyone else wants to join us besides you weird lurkers. So we're going to take a look at this interview. That will naturally, I think, lead to some conversation points. For myself, right? Graham Hancock is someone's, let's say his work, right, is something that has been very, very important to me personally, right? Aside from all of the things that one could get oneself associated with if you're not already when you type this name into Google or any search engine and go and see what you get, right? All of that aside, his work played a role, right? A role that only I would know about in what you see before you. So this may not be an advertisement, for Mr. Hancock's work, but it is what it is. So I figure we'll sort of that. When I was picturing this conversation that I'll have with myself, thanks lurkers, earlier, it was something like this, that this will lead us nicely into me being able to sort of tap on and open the door of the antediluvian side of my work. Ben Mabilla, heavy. And I know people that are new to, what the hell is this thing in front of me? This big hairy guy, right? He's got all this old stuff, but some of it's before a flood, and some of it's native, and it's confusing. But I appreciate all of you that have hung there with me and are still here, lurking. I see you. There's 4 of you now. Oh, the 4th one's Sarah. We've got 3 lurkers in here. They won't say anything in the chat, Sarah. Hey, your migraine's coming on. Good to see you. Yo, bro, get out of here then. Remember, DMT, I hear. I sent her a article earlier. Saw somebody comment that DMT in small doses, like not enough to, take you someplace, would assist with migraines. And Sarah is a rabid migraine sufferer. I guess the old saying is trade-off, because Sarah is exceptionally gifted in many areas. So perhaps, there's something to that. But I bet there's also a way to get rid of those. Just timing. Haven't found it yet. Anyhow, if anybody's got any good migraine suggestions, lurkers, feel free to put them in the chat for Sarah. We're going to pull on your empathy now and see if you want to say hello. Sarah, just please, thank you for saying hello, and I know what you're in, so see to yourself. I was just explaining to everybody the wherefores and whys of why we'll be taking a look at Mr. Hancock's latest, or at least the last. I'm only going to do probably the last half hour, I think, Sarah, because that's the part I haven't gotten to listen to yet. And and I figure for those that are interested, this way it might kind of serve as an advert. You can go back and check out the first hour 15, which is where they talk about all the cool shit. Yeah, so Sarah went to see Disclosure Day today. Sarah, do you want to give your review? I mean, I've already received your private review. And I won't put it out there for you, because you could do it so much more eloquently. Sarah went to see Disclosure Day for the team today. I'm unsure. You know, when we were little, man, they'd clip porn into cartoons, and we wouldn't even know about it. I just don't trust what messages might have been waiting for me on the reel at Disclosure Day. But Sarah, as ever, braved it for the team. So she's got the report, and you can kind of already, I guess, right here is get a hint at how she felt about Spielberg. I was going to put a Mister there, but I don't know. Should we? Should we? Does E.T. really get you a perpetual Mister? Does it? I mean, you know, it's kind of always now, guys. So, you know, you got to always be showing me fucking something, right? You can't sail forever on E.T. That was Spielberg, right? We're approaching our 10-minute mark, too. Okay, Sarah and lurkers, we're going to get there. So I figured that by doing this, and let's sort of just, we may not even make it through, you guys see how much I can talk, you know, with nobody here. No telling what I can do listening to some conversation I haven't heard. So we may or may not make it all the way. The main goal was to hang out here, keep some consistency, and keep this show going, saying hello to all you folks, and doing something that means a little something to me, right? Therefore, I figure I can link that in better to all of the stories I'm trying to tell and the evidence I'm trying to show, which, as I mentioned, I've materially divided into Finding Mobilla and Antediluvian Alabama, right? So, since we've been DeSoto heavy and all of that, we needed to do a little antediluvian. And of course, as always, Mr. Hancock serves as well, the sort of launching point. At least he was for me. You know, when I was getting into all this, guys, you know, and you got to remember, I was finding things in the real world, right? I wasn't very much into the media landscape, you know, as you can tell by watching me learn how to do this shit, you know. But what I was busy doing were sort of the things you see me portraying, right? You know, out there, finding God, learning how to walk with Him, finding myself, learning how to walk with Him, you know, or strangle Him and get Him out of the way, whichever is more conducive to the moment. And I was busy putting these new tools, you know, these shamanic tools is the word I'd use, because I think it's just, I don't even want to get started on words, guys. You know, it's why in my real life, I stick to like 4-letter ones, you know, with that or my eyes. People are always going, your eyes are so expressive. I'm like, yeah, because it's better than words, you know. You know, you can get away with discussing without words, and I'm probably in my day-to-day life apt to go that way. Yeah, so there is that. Okay, all right. Nobody's here other than Sarah. It's just like the theater today, man. You had the theater all to yourself, and now you've got the chat all to yourself. And she's probably gone to see her migraine, and so now I'm all to myself, and we're gonna get started. All right, I've got to pull up YouTube. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. We're going to start with this interview, and we'll, of course, plug, I don't know this guy, Jacqueline, The Diary of a CEO is the name of the podcast, not the name of the gentleman whose podcast it is. But Jacqueline from Universe Unveiled, and Sarah, what's up, Tammy? Jacqueline highly recommends this dude. She says it's about her favorite podcaster, and I take Jacqueline's word for it. So there's your plug, folks. What's up, Tammy? Okay, so the movie must have been really bad. Sarah was here, and she still didn't want to tell us about it. Old Dave, our buddy Dave, King David from Dave's Multiverse, and Brian Corey Dobbs, both of them from Mars Disclosure Live with Sarah and I. After Mars Disclosure Live this Sunday, they are going to do their own podcast. And, have you guys told everybody yet? I better shut up, huh? Man, You can't tell me shit is whether unless you've told folks. It's either that or you got to tell me nobody's supposed to know, and then nobody will ever know. I'll fucking forget until you ask me again. But it's tough keeping up with what everybody's doing, and are they hush hush about it or not? So we're just going to get to where we are. Tammy, so I think you had mentioned you hadn't watched this. You just got here. Hey, let's bring Tammy up. We did, I think. There you go, producer. Producer used his voice. Wow, he's growing up. I saw a study the other day about people who narrate out loud what they're doing and what that says about their intelligence, and I should keep that on hand for reference at all points when people want to make fun. Of course, there's somebody here, so I'm the only one making fun of myself right now. I'm telling you, it gets complicated in here. It really does. Shaman shit's not all it's cracked up to be. Right, Sarah, with your migraine? Good to see you, Moss. I knew you were hanging out. Don't worry, chat shouldn't, chats. Oh, you were one of the lurkers. Okay, I get it. I get it. So we may or may not have had any actual lurkers. So listen, everybody, what the plan is in case you haven't seen this interview, I think I'm going to pick up where I left off yesterday. I was running a lot of errands all over the place yesterday, and I was trying to listen to this thing, and I got through an hour and 15, right? Roughly an hour and 20. But the conversation just shifts right through there, and from sort of history to other topics. So it seemed like an apropos place to just pick up, and we'll catch the last half hour sort of here together and converse about it, and I'll share wherever it leads us, to share here. But mostly also, if you haven't seen it, it gives you the opportunity to go back and catch the first half hour, the first hour and 10, 15 if you're into it. And I think you will be. So far, this is very good. I like this dude, the podcaster. I'm just waiting for the ads to get past, and we'll start sharing. Not my ads, man. All right, pause there, and let's share with you guys, and let's get on to what we said we'd do. Yeah, there we go. Rock and roll. Okay, and we need that bigger, better. See, that's how I talk, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Throw a little flair into it, otherwise it gets boring. All right, can you guys see everything good? See everything well? Good. Can you see good? Can you talk good? Can you see well? I'll take that as a yes. Isn't it weird when people start asking the chat to say stuff? I know it helps and all that, but I could really care less. I mean, look at my audience size. So I'm not gonna do that. I'm going to start that habit from the get-go. I'm not going to ask the chat questions unless, I really need to know something. I'm still going to do that. I'm going to break that in 2 seconds. Okay, so let's give this guy's name. The only trouble is I just know it's the Diary of CEO podcast, but we should give his name here at the front. But where do we find all that info? We'd have to mini-screen it. Oh, goodness gracious. I know I don't put my name in my podcast either, and I don't know how to close this down. There we go. Okay, so who is this gentleman? More. Does anybody know his name in the chat? See, there is an appropriate use of chat knowledge. Okay, well, we all know Graham Hancock and Diary of a CEO podcast. If you want to see the first bit of this, you can see we're at an hour 17, and we're going to kind of kick off right about from here. The guy started a new chapter. He labeled it Why Being an Outsider Matters. Again, the first bit of this I listened to is fucking killer, so go check it out. But let's rock and roll here and see what we come up with.
Life. That's what I'm for. I'm here to be an outsider. I've come to that conclusion, and I need to do that well. I need to provide an alternative point of view on the past.
There's a real cost to being an outsider.
Oh yeah, but there are also some benefits. We are what we are, and for me, I was always strange. I had this childhood in in India. I didn't fit into the British school system. I was a total failure at school. I could not connect. I could not connect with any of it. It seemed I just didn't get it. What was this about? And the cruelty, the viciousness. My dad went to a boarding school and had a good experience, so he sent me to a boarding school in Durham in the north of England. It was the cruelest place. Beatings going on. I was repeatedly beaten about the bare buttocks by a sadistic headmaster with a cane. I couldn't fit in with the other kids at school, and I don't feel victimized for being an outsider. I feel it's a privilege.
So I had corporal punishment. That's what we call it in the U.S. It wasn't bare buttocks and it wasn't a cane. They'd have wooden paddles, and like some of the teachers were assholes about it. Like they drill holes in the paddles, and say it made them more aerodynamic. I was fucking serious. My English teacher was a Vietnam vet, and he had his foot blown off on a landmine, and he had a mechanical foot, and he would proudly pivot on that bastard, and he'd hit you below the buttocks, and that, and then the others would hit you above the buttocks. It's never a good thing.
I feel I've been given an opportunity to take a different view of things as a result of being an outsider.
Are there words unsaid here with these two people in your life?
Yes, there are so many words unsaid. I'd like to go back to my mum and say, I understand why you were so obsessed with keeping me alive and making sure that I did something with my life. And I'd like to say to my dad, look, you were pretty crazy, but you did at least inspire me to be eccentric.
What's up, dude?
It's a funny thing getting older. I'm 75, 76 in August. One of the things it does is you realize how collapsed life actually is. I remember being a teenager.
I knew I was fucking with somebody.
And I remember being middle-aged. And the feeling is you're immortal. It's going to go on forever. Everything's going to go on forever. And it's long. It's long. Lots of time to do the things you want to do. I have a message. No. It's not long. There is not lots of time. If there's things you want to do with your life, start now. Start right away. Don't wait. Otherwise, you'll not have the opportunity. Life is very short. It's a beautiful, beautiful gift that the universe has given to us. We are responsible for returning that gift by, as far as possible, within the circumstances that the universe has given us, living a full life and contributing something worthwhile to that life. Not being a robot, not being commanded what to do. We need to learn to think for ourselves. This is something that is so easily forgotten. It's a miracle that you and I are sitting here at all. I'm here, that you're here, that we're here together. It's an absolute miracle. It's a result of billions and billions of years of processes in the universe, which had nothing to do with us, randomly bring us together at this point. It's really quite a miraculous situation. To be alive, to be born at all, is a miracle. I think it was Voltaire who, talking about reincarnation, who said it's no more extraordinary to be born twice than to be born once. And I think there's a point in that.
Are you religious? Do you believe in a God? Or
I would say that I am, that I pay.
There's a conversation starter because True's here now. Welcome, bro. Thanks, man. Thanks for stopping lurking. Yeah, I knew I was fucking with somebody. So where are we on reincarnation? Yeah, it seems from the position I now hold and the experience I now carry, it seems patently obvious to me. No matter which way you want to look at it, no matter from which angle you want to look at it, right? Now, that was not always the case, and that's why I almost stopped myself there, because, I do try to constantly keep in mind, especially when I'm talking to people about this antediluvian stuff, right? I have to, because it has been such an intimate work for myself, finding it, both materially, right, and then processing it, and, all of it. It's one of those things where I want to keep myself in the, I think, me personally in my experience talking, that concrete knowledge of these former realities, call them epochs of time, about human civilization, is that it helps to concretize a higher level of consciousness that I myself, reasons for the screen name shaman, all that are new, right? I find it easier to concretize when I have concretized it with this stuff in stone that I found, right? It's like the two sort of work together, and I think that is part of the reason why no mainstream, system of any sort is terribly excited or in a hurry to have us have this knowledge, right? I think that's, if you watch the first part of this interview, they address all of the things one would find if you look up Graham Hancock, just the general controversies. He talks about his health, what's going on. And we'll back up before we wrap up here, because I don't want to try to tell you guys, he's going through a surgery that should be absolutely fine. It's like modern, sneezes nearly, even though it's open heart, from what I understand. But it seems like nothing. So I'm certainly not going to add to it with my words. What's going on, Screw? Thanks, bro. So we'll get back to it. But yeah, reincarnation, that's where we stopped. What's going on? What's up, CMS? What's up, Screwdriver? Thank you, guys. So you didn't miss a whole lot. You know me, I talked for the first 15, and then we're picking up with the tail end of this interview. I think it's like a half hour maybe. That way, if I shut up and let you watch it and you dig it, you can go back and watch the beginning, because that's where I got to when I was listening yesterday. So that's where we're picking up as we hang out for a few here on Friday night live. Believe it or not, look at that. It's Friday, man. Friday Night Live. Wanted to do that when I was little. Were you guys into like Saturday Night Live when you were little? I was. Then it got shitty like real quick, but all right, everybody's saying hello. That's what I like to see. I'm not going to put you guys all up there. I've been paying attention to you. I need to press play, but that's what I really like to see, is friends saying hello, because that's kind of what I'm doing here. We're going to try to make something out of this and take this conversation somewhere good, but all in all, I was sitting down because I told you guys I'd be here 3 times a week, and it's Friday. So thank you all for being here and mostly hanging out with each other and saying hello to me. All right, let's get back to letting this guy talk. So yeah, reincarnation. Yeah, to me, seems like it'd be a waste if it wasn't. Even if you're trying to come at this thing from what most Christians like to say, somehow that doesn't fit with what they believe. I don't personally understand that. I don't see where they get that from. In fact, when I look into it, everything I can find, that a lot of the early dudes that were actually boots on the ground, as they say, with the whole beginning of, Christ's message going out and about, that reincarnation was indeed, a part of it, right? And it's been fairly well understood in my experience to be the case. You guys don't want to talk about it, so we're going to keep going. Look at that. All right, we'll watch it.
Delivery for Kaka? 5 stars to you.
DoorDash.
Football.
Close attention to what I would regard as the spiritual, non-physical side of life. But I do not belong to any organized religion. One of the things I don't like about organized religion is that your relationship to the divine, whatever you call the divine, spirit world, whatever you want to call it, your relationship is mediated in some way. Some priest or rabbi or mullah teaches you how to mediate that relationship. And I think what's important, for me anyway, in the spiritual inquiry, is a direct relationship, a direct experience. Rather than being taught something, I want to experience it for myself. And that's why I found ayahuasca very, very valuable, because it has enabled me to experience something that is absolutely impossible to experience in normal everyday life. We're so plugged in to the physical world, and we have to be. We've got to obey the laws of physics. We've got to deal with the economics of our circumstances. We have to make our way through life. All of those things we've got to do. But if they become our total focus, we become shut off from everything and anything else that may exist. And what the big psychedelics can do, if they're taken in the right circumstances, with the right advice, with sincere intention, what they can do is get you out of your own way and allow you to connect to that wider realm that normally you cannot connect to. And yes, I do believe that a wider realm exists. Just in the same way that, before the invention of the microscope, we had no idea that there were bacteria. I think I'm right about that. We start seeing these tiny little things swimming around. Gosh, major discovery. Well, they were always there. We just didn't have the kit to see them. And I'm suggesting that what psychedelics can be, and certainly what they're used as shamans for, is technology, a device for getting you out of your own way and allowing you to connect with other levels of reality that in daily life it doesn't serve you to be connected with.
The interesting thing about DMT in particular is when you speak to people who have done DMT. I spent about a year working in quite a big psychedelics company I got really fascinated. I'd left my company. I didn't have anything to do with my time. So I started this podcast, and I also on YouTube, and I also started working at a psychedelic.
Now, I know with you guys in the chat, I could just say psychedelics, talk amongst yourselves, and you could probably just run with it. Yeah, I certainly, psilocybin is my experience mostly. If we're talking lifetime, then there was some LSD when I was little, but not black when I was little. 20, was it? Gosh, 22, maybe 21, something like that. New York City at a concert. It's not, it's where it came to me, but it's not the greatest place to probably have your first experience like that. The sunset was spectacular, but the crowds were something, man. That was something to navigate right there. That was an afternoon and a fucking half, especially when I realized I couldn't get back to my proper seat. Yeah. It's fun though, I guess. But not what, not at all the tool as we're talking about here. And that's why I don't, bring that up a lot, because that was one of those, you're just a kid and things come your way and you roll with the experience, But since, being not an adult either, that's not fucking a fair assessment. But since being this wizened weird thing in front of you, psilocybin I made use of. It's been quite a while now, time again soon, honestly. But we'll see what fortune brings. It's one of those things that when it's right for you, it's time. And he's going to finish addressing it here. But I kind of just wanted to give the audience, since we've got a few people at the moment, if they wanted to say anything. So I was kind of just giving you guys air. What do we got now? Okay, Adobe Acrobat. I'm not interested. Out of the way. Yeah. I mean, all good things ahead, man. But my life just hasn't presented, such things to me yet. But there's a place called Mushroom Mountain just right down the road. There's a field right over there by the Alabama River. The natives, at least from what the archaeologists tell us, from what I've learned from going to places like Moundville, and of course from reading, some of Graham's work, is, the natives were prolific with that. So one could imagine, at least, there's a possibility that when you're gathering wild, you are gathering spores that might genetically be linked to those they used, So yeah, that was all. It was a much more serious endeavor, once God got involved and you start working on yourself. Yeah. Well, we all do, right? We all do, And Dave's a hell of a dude, man. Dave's a hell of a dude. I'm not going to talk about him while he's not here, because my real friends, I generally will just make fun of you and cuss you when you're around. That's how you know you're in, So if you do that when they're not here, they're like, "Did you hear how he was talking about him behind his back?" And you don't get it. But no, Dave and I chat regularly, man. Doing Mars Disclosure. Here's your plug. We're doing Mars Disclosure Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time with Brian Corey Dobbs and the crew. Sarah will be there, and Ricardo, the folks And then he and Brian Corey Dobbs are going to do a podcast after that I know the subject of, but I can't remember, y'all, if they've told folks. So if in the chat, let me know and I'll say something. But otherwise, I'll try to keep my mouth shut. Oh yeah, well, I never used it, in any sort of escapist way, right? And that's the thing. It's not for that. And that's why I suppose that what they call these larger doses and things aren't for everyone, right? I had very express intents. The same intents I have when I'm praying would be the word I guess people might use, right? Well, when you have those intentions and you're alone and you're using these tools, it's something else, right? It's access to something else. It's like putting your typical experience in more than HD. It's like sort of getting immersed in a 4D experience that is when your intention is aimed correctly, right? And you're trying to accomplish something and you are able to walk through that experience. It's almost like you can walk through a structured, experience, right? And you can walk through it that way. It's quite an undertaking. It's not just woo. Let me do this and feel better. It's it's like so not that, right? But when one is after that connection, and frankly, those messages that can be conferred. I joked in the beginning about liking simple expressions and simple words, and how I speak in real life. Made some cool jokes, right? But that's because, see, spirit, God, all things spiritual, right? And all things that don't have bodies. This is how I say it. I'm talking to myself. All right. A lot of times words are used, yes, right? But once one's accustomed, I mean, even when one's not accustomed, right? Pictures, images, and things that are of a third eye or a fourth dimensional quality. Sometimes it's all of it, right? Sometimes it's the music that's playing plus what's going on in your head plus the scenery is all synced up, right? Is the closest you can kind of get. Well, with these tools, you can sort of turn the moment into that when that is what you're seeking, right? And I think that's much the way these native peoples would have been using it, right? As they used it in proliferation, if one is to believe the diorama at Moundville and the baskets of what do you call mushrooms that they have there for one to see when you go to Moundville. But yeah, that's my little speech on that. I knew psychedelics would give us something to talk about for a second. All right, let's get back to the man here. The men.
Business, because I found the studies on mental health and psychedelics really interesting. So I have quite a deep understanding, I guess higher than average, of ibogaine and ayahuasca and DMT. And my partner is very, very spiritual and has done all these things as well. So one of the fascinating things is how similar people's experiences are on something like DMT. Funnily enough, your description of these.
Wow, every time I stop it, we give them an ad. The cost.
Delivery for
Creatures saying, you belong to us now, is almost verbatim what one of my friends described 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That they were teleported into this like 4K realm where these creatures that are like slightly animal in that anatomical structure, maybe slightly a little bit human as well, basically was like had taken hold of him, and they were very curious and inspecting him, very colorful realm, and then they kind of sent him back, or at least after and it does make one wonder. I think one of my conclusions was if inhaling a small chemical can completely take me to another place, then and if you, from a reasoning perspective, it's just it was one inhale of a chemical, then it goes to say that my current perception of reality is as fragile as an inhale of a chemical. Like me
Here's what I'm curious about, right? Having not done this, right? Here's what I'm curious about. Okay, so if these entities, right, become curious about you as soon as you notice them, right? Now, does that tell me that it is opening me up to concurrent realities around me? because in order for that to be so, something would have had to shifted in their reality for them to suddenly notice me, right? So either it takes your consciousness from local, right, and places it somewhere completely non-local, which would be interesting, I guess. You know, you'd have to, I don't know, can somebody be local and non-local while on this stuff? You know, can you shake them too and sort of have them, you know, come back here, but also go right to being poked and prodded? I don't know. But this is what has me curious, is that the consciousness there suddenly recognizes the consciousness here as soon as the consciousness here recognizes the consciousness there. That's where my first curious question lies. You know, that's not like I've experienced on anything, you know, with psilocybin, right? Psilocybin, the experience, at least as I've experienced it, definitely leaves one with the impression that you are being opened up to concurrent reality that you would not normally be open to, right? Simply perhaps because, as they say, the old filter is turned on to keep us, you know, out of necessity from these things, because it's just so overwhelming, right? You know, that's definitely a sense you're left with from psilocybin. But with these other consciousnesses, seeing you when you see them is curious indeed.
Thinking that I'm here with you now is as fragile as inhaling one chemical.
Yeah.
So to think that this is base reality, when the difference between this and being with some grasshopper people in 4K
Exactly.
is literally an inhale.
Yeah.
It just, that for me, I was like, oh, wow, okay.
It's an extraordinary realization when that comes, and it causes us to question the nature of reality itself. And this is what's really important about these medicines. First and foremost, you're right. These psychedelic medicines are proving incredibly effective as therapeutic tools. And that's great. I really think that's incredibly valuable. But there's another level to go, which is the inquiry into the nature of reality and the inquiry into what consciousness is. These medicines are very effective means to conduct that inquiry, and that's why I applaud what they're doing at Imperial College in London. They're also going to be doing trials at the University of California, San Diego. They're going to be doing trials in Costa Rica. A whole range of places now are looking into this because it's really interesting. People coming back and reporting the same experience when they haven't compared notes yet. How do we explain that? Because it's in a vision.
I'm not going to stop it. I'm going to mute it. So you see the board in front of them? I don't know if they go back to it, but guys that are just joining us, we're only watching the last half hour or so of this. They use that board in like the coolest ways, right? And the way the production value, it zooms in to the actual piece in his hand, and then it like zooms cut away, you know, instantly to like a real locale. That is cool as shit.
About the nature of reality, which is that it's material based, that there's nothing else to it really. Everything is reduced to matter. Even consciousness is reduced to matter. It's reduced to the physical matter of the brain. We don't know that for sure. We don't know what's going on. Consciousness is absolutely not understood. And so when we have mysteries, like people who are injected a small dose of a chemical like DMT and go off into a completely other reality, that's really interesting. And it's at least as interesting, if not more interesting, than exploring other planets right now. I think we need to explore ourselves first. We're not in shape as a species to start exploring the universe. We don't want to export our toxicity to other parts of the universe until we've overcome it, until we've grown up as a species, which we haven't done yet. We need to know ourselves. Psychedelics are one way to do that, not used irresponsibly, but used responsibly in a structured, careful, thoughtful way. They can be very helpful in knowing ourselves. Yeah. That's the journey we need to do first. Go to Mars, by all means, go to the moon. We go even further, but do this first. Know who you are first before you start doing those bigger and wider investigations. Yep. Get all that sorted out, because we hardly sorted out anything on this planet, and we're talking about exploring other planets. Well, I'm all in favor of exploring other planets, but I'd like to sort out things on this planet first. That's where the resources should be going, and we should stop kidding ourselves that we can just escape this planet and make a complete shithole of it, leave it and go and live somewhere else. No, we can fix this. We are capable of fixing this. We're capable of fixing everything. Human beings have enormous potential. We're just using a fraction of 1% of it at the moment.
The question the obvious question that comes to mind is
I can't even fucking see it, honestly.
Maybe,
that's how little it is.
I don't know, maybe some kind of leader comes along.
Could be. I think we need to move past leaders.
I just don't know how else humans would change without some kind of leadership.
It's very difficult to see. I agree with you. It's very difficult to see how it happens, one person at a time, slowly through word of mouth, through experience. But look, everything in the ayahuasca garden is not all flowers either. There's a lot of very wrong behavior going on there. People are exploiting that medicine. Basically, drug dealers are exploiting that medicine and offering it irresponsibly to people in groups of 100 or even more. That's actually really, really stupid to do that. Ayahuasca is an intimate experience, and it needs to be done in a very...
While the ad's on, I have to make the joke. I mean, he's going to say, seriously, wow, that's fucked up. And I you can go there. But also, don't you throw up and poo a lot? I mean, really? Is that like a group exercise? I mean, 100 people, like, pooing and vomiting all over each other, while also, tripping in and out of other dimensions?
Medicines in a false light. They have their downsides. They have their problems. They are extremely serious. We should always research and investigate before any experience with psychedelics, but they have a part to play. And it's an important part. And thank God we're seeing its effects, psilocybin effect on long-term depression, very important.
Oh, that reminds me. I did talk about picking your own. Do not do so without an expert. And if you need any reason as to why, I can tell you about my first trip out with an expert. And I found on that very evening a skullcap mushroom. Look it up. You don't want to get your shit wrong. So please, there's no doing that without somebody who has done it a lot themselves.
Product team, who...
He's talking about a show, so we'll drive that point home. Yeah, that's my disclaimer. It's I think it's important if you have the intention and the people with you to know what you're doing. I think it is important. It's just like taking anything from the earth. If you can do it, find it in its natural environment. And the lineage of things that have been growing there for a long time. That's the way you want to do it. But you want to do it with an expert, no doubt. Skullcap mushroom, a quarter of it will kill a grown man. It's just sitting there all by itself too, looking all pretty and blonde and just voluptuous. Had like a spotlight on it though, and my brain just went, I'm gonna pick it carefully and wrap it, put it separate. We're gonna go look this up.
Through your journey through ancient civilizations, what have you come to learn about what this consciousness thing is, if anything at all, or at least what people believed, and how those mythologies were similar?
Yes, I've partly come to this through the ancient texts. There's a very specific scene in a number of the ancient Egyptian funerary texts. It's called the judgment scene. And what you see is, you see the deceased entering into a hall, into a room, at the end of which sits the god Osiris, enthroned. And the deceased is led into the hall by the goddess Maat. She's recognized by a feather that she wears in her headdress. She's the goddess of truth, justice, and cosmic harmony. He enters the hall. There's a scale in the hall. In one pan of the scale is an object that represents his heart, oblique his soul. Heart and soul were the same thing for the Egyptians in that sense. And in the other pan is the feather of Maat, the feather of truth, harmony, and cosmic justice. You do not want your heart to outweigh the feather at that moment. You want, at the very least, to be in balance. And in order to be in balance, then comes into question the whole way that you've lived your life. Up on the wall of the hall, there are 42 little figures. They're called the 42 negative assessors. Each one of them is going to ask you a question. Did you steal? Did you kill? Actually, the 10 Commandments are all in there, and a lot more as well. Ideally, you should be able to answer no to all of those questions, but the ancient Egyptians always understood how frail human beings are and that we can always make mistakes. The question is, what do we do when we make a mistake? Do we learn from it, or do we keep on repeating it? And what I read into that is, you were given, you, the deceased, you were given an incredible opportunity. We allowed you to be born in a human body. You could have a range of experiences that no other physical form on your planet could have. You had this huge brain. You had this enormous capacity. We gave this to you. What did you do with it? Did you use it well, or did you squander it and waste it? And at that moment, you'd better be there with some answers about how you used it well. So as I come towards the end of my life, I look very carefully at my life. I try to undo wrongs that I have done in the past if I can, and I try to make sure I don't do any more in the future. I want to be a nurturing and positive and useful person to the people around me.
The health situation you've gone through has clearly made you quite introspective, probably more so than you might have been 10 years ago, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was still immortal 10 years ago. Listen, each and every one of us, every single human being on this planet could die in the next minute. Life is that fragile. It's that sudden. You can never predict how long you're going to live. But what something like this does, it focuses the mind, and it does make me wish more and more that I can leave this life with as few regrets as possible, and that I can feel that I played a useful and positive role.
Oh, look, I know you got to make your money, but what the fuck? What was that timing? Got me over here all emotional, and you're just gonna pop in with the sale? Oh, I can't skip, man. Look,
in the life of others, and that I even played, in some way, a useful and positive role in the life of the species to which I belong.
Are you happy?
I am very happy in a lot of ways. I'm blessed to have lived the life I've lived, to have traveled the world, to have the adventures that I have had. I'm blessed with a beautiful and wonderful wife and companion, my wife, Santha.
I've got this wonderful picture of her.
Yeah.
Glows.
That's me and Santha. We met when we were about 40 years old. And I don't think we've been apart more than 4 days in the entire 30 plus years since then.
Wow.
We do everything together. We travel together. Santha's a photographer, brilliant photographer. And
okay, now, listen, I like the fact that it wasn't until 40. If we're looking at, this is one of the things I want to point out, because the things that often, we don't take time to notice is, who are the people, that we're getting our information from? Who are the people that we're looking to, for things, or putting in leadership roles, and that's one of the things I look for right the fuck away, right? When I'm getting my information, and what am I gonna take in truly? Well, I'm gonna consider the fucking source first, blame AA, blame whatever you want to blame, but that's what you learn, right? Is you've got to you got to trust your fucking source, okay? And when I did that, right away, when I was introduced to his work, I didn't know all the things that everybody seems to know now in this big battle that's erupted, between archaeology and Graham Hancock and, whoever the hell else is on the pseudo side, right? Before all that shit, right? I didn't know. I just knew that I'd had my own experiences with archaeology in the real concrete world, and I ran into some fucking criminals, y'all. Right? There's no other word for it. And when I was looking for another source of information, as I was being guided to, the first thing I'm going to do when I feel, and I might tell that story, when I feel, I'm guided towards someone's work, about how I wound up, there. Point being, you look at a person's life, and as someone right now who is, what's the word, not with a partner, right, would be the word. in my ideal, right, in the way I would see it being only worthwhile, right, and what it's supposed to be, is kind of what I hear this man in front of me describing, right? Okay, met late in life, you had shit developed, figured out, and then boom, you get together and you're not ever apart. And she does like some of what you do, and you do some of what she does, and just that's it, right? It's a complete and total package unit from then on. And see, that right there shows me a good role model, like in real life. I'm not studying what the fuck somebody was writing about, at first. I'm studying who are they, right? And when you come across that, you can tick your first box off. Okay, cool. Got that covered, right? Yeah, it's true, right? It's true. It's true. And what a lovely role model couple to have.
And I do not have a great visual eye, so we work together. I do the words, Santha does the pictures. We have the adventures together. We did the scuba diving together. Santha nearly lost her life twice in intense currents scuba diving. She's brave. She's an adventurer. She's a wonderful mother. This is so important. Santha and I have 6 children between us. Santha brought 2 from her previous marriage. I brought 2 from my first marriage and 2 from my second marriage. So 6 children from 3 broken marriages is a potential disaster. Santha brought them all together into a group of loving, deeply committed siblings who care for one another, who are constantly in each other's lives, who are there to support one another. Santha did that by just being a brilliant, loving person. So I'm very happy to have such a great partner who's stood by me through thick and thin and who's brought out these wonderful characters in our children and now our grandchildren. 9 grandchildren, 6 grandkids, all of it's down to Santha.
It's remarkable that through all the wonders of human history and all the things we talked about, that love, like this kind of romantic love, is so central, so important, so central to our happiness. I just thought, it's just a wonderful reminder of how easy it is to get caught up in the material and all the toxic, whereas, so much of it comes from just the simplicity of falling in love with someone.
Love is what it's all about, and love is giving. It's giving yourself to somebody else. It's putting the other person. So I'm going to end up crying. This is what my wife does.
You better got me crying over here. Shit.
With everybody. She puts other people first. And others benefit enormously from that. I'm very fortunate. I think if I hadn't met Santha when I did and we hadn't formed this joint life, I think I would have made nothing of my life. Nothing at all.
Really?
I think it would have just gone down the tubes. I needed a loving steering hand at that point. Anyway, very lucky. I am happy. There are things that make me unhappy, of course, just like every other human being. I don't understand why those who are bitterly opposed to my work want to try and present me as some kind of fraud or grifter, but I suppose it's a easy way to lazily dismiss somebody else. Another thing that has been used is because I've considered the possibility of a lost civilization having an influence on other known historical civilization. I've been accused of racism as well, that I've been accused of taking away the authenticity of indigenous achievements. And that again has been without any receipts. It's just thrown out there as an accusation. Now for me,
But, I hadn't even seen that, y'all, when I stopped to tell you what a role model in that regard, right? And look, got me over here bawling.
The multi-ethnic family, that racism abuse that has been thrown at me constantly is extremely hurtful and extremely painful. It's one of the few things that have been thrown at me that I actually cannot forgive. It's unforgivable to use that lazy, easy dismissal in a society where a lot of people don't read anymore, can pretty much guarantee people who hear that on the internet, they're not going to go and read the books and actually find out what I said. They're just going to take it as face value. So that does hurt, and it does make me sad. But generally, I'm blessed. I'm lucky. I've lived a fantastic, privileged life. I've explored the world. I'm surrounded.
Make him hurt and sad, makes him fucking pissed off, and it should anybody. What a low fucking hanging piece of fruit to grab and throw at somebody that's then going to have conversations with their children, because their children happen to be a product of, he just explained it himself, man. Like, fucking people, dude. Fucking people. Some of them deserve just a swift boot in the ass. It's okay once in a while.
By love and onwards and upwards, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Graham, I think at the end of the day, the thing that endures is the impact, the curiosity that you've provoked in people, allowed them to wander beyond the narrowness of our lives, which is quite miserable. A narrow life feels quite like a miserable life where you can't be open-minded and explore. And that's why I love these conversations. It's not to say that I always accept, when I have these kind of conversations, everything to be 100% true. But the net benefit for me is just expanding my mind to possibility.
Absolutely.
And please don't rob me of the opportunity to expand my mind to possibility.
Yeah.
What would my life become without possibility or
Thank
hope,
you, Amy.
all these things? And actually, when I look at graphs like this that show how our beliefs and scientific understanding has changed, even in recent times, as recent as 2017, on this particular graph, I have some arrogance to assume that I know it all today.
Totally. Things are constantly changing. Every turn of the spade in an archaeological dig can change the whole story. Change the whole story. This is not limited to archaeology. This is found in all fields where there are specialists, that they tend to get locked into a particular reference frame and actually defend it in a territorial way.
Yeah.
It becomes like a war. And they
like
feel absolutely responsible to defend that territory against all comers, and will use any dirty tricks that are needed to be used in order to defeat the enemy. So you asked me a straightforward question: am I?
Now, see right here, right? Like, if I have any, look, I don't really see, what a person does for a living first. I think I made that pretty clear, and how I judge people, I'm gonna trust to read their work and take in the info and shit, right? Okay, so if you are an archaeologist, or any friend of mine that's somehow involved in mainstream, it's important, that you understand that when he says things like that, right, there's a reason I stand by what he says. Because my experience, before I ever found social media, before you guys had ever fucking heard of me, first place I went, right, was some traditional places, right? And my experience was, I if you're asking me from a spiritual standpoint, and how I feel about the native culture and civilization which inhabited this land long before we did now, right? Where I sit, and this entire place is built upon it nearly, right? If you ask me how I feel about that, from that level, okay, giving way the wanton destruction of that is criminal to me, right? I don't mean it in the worlds of man, or somehow morally wrong, but to me personally, that counts as criminal, right? Especially when your job, at least in label, is to be protecting and taking care of this shit. So words like criminal can get used when one has an experience that is criminal. Now, we all know that's not everyone. And as I began that little piece with, I don't see what people do for a living, guys. That's not the first thing I want, unless you just want to throw that at me and make sure I understand that you went to school somewhere for 8 fucking years, and that means otherwise I'm not going there first. I'm going to, who are you as a person, right? I think that's where we all should go, if you want my advice on that matter, right? Not that you asked, but you've got it now, So I don't say blanket things, right? I don't, but I will tell you my experience thus far. And my experience thus far is that when I heard him saying the things he was saying, you can understand now how I went, oh, okay, hooked, right? Because he's right. That was my experience. I hope it's not my experience from here on out, you know. There you go, guys that might be with us now. But it has been my experience, you know, in the real world.
Happy? Yes, I am happy. And I honestly answered you that there are certain things, particularly the racism assaults on me, that do make me extremely unhappy.
What else do I need to know about the possibility of...
Blame Graham's love for Santa. Santa. That disgusting sound. Sorry, guys.
What I found so fascinating is, especially we're in a moment of this AI revolution, where you've got these sort of big forces of, you've got nuclear weapons over here, you've now got this advanced intelligence, there's humanoid robots on the horizon. And if there was ever a moment where the word, you know, existential is being used in a way that is probably appropriate, for me, it feels like now.
Yeah, it feels like now to me too. This is no doubt, our species is poised on the edge of an abyss right now. Our technology has outgrown our mentality, and we're not in good shape to deal with the challenges that lie ahead. Unfortunately, the chances of a nuclear exchange are just higher and higher. And that's just a realistic assessment of the way the world is with these maniacal leaders. So what could we learn from the past? I believe we can learn that there's another way to live, that we don't have to do it this way.
How do you know?
That's something I believe.
Okay, believe.
That's something I don't know.
Okay.
I
guess
know
I'm
it, bro.
optimistic that human beings have made it through.
You're right.
All these centuries, all these thousands of years, all these hundreds of thousands of years, that we've made it through. We've made terrible mistakes, done terrible things. I mean, look at the Second World War. God knows how many people were killed there. I mean, 20 million Russians alone, if I remember correctly. It was just horrific, absolute horror. When I was born in 1950, the Second World War was only 5 years away, and at the end of it, and it hung over us. You know, our generation were aware of that, but it seems to me people today aren't aware of the horror of global war in the way that they were then, and that adds to the danger that we will immolate ourselves. I think a new approach to the nature of reality is really vital. I think we need to begin to understand consciousness better. And what I would wish for the human species.
I mean, from one standpoint, they are perfectly placed.
Is that we understand we are actually all one. Incredibly diverse, full of creativity and differences, but all one. And a mother in the middle of sub-Saharan Africa and a mother in New York City, they love their kids in exactly the same way. They hope for their kids in exactly the same way. There's no difference between them at all. As long as we're indoctrinated into this notion of divisive differences. I'm all in favor of differences between human beings. That's part of our creativity as our species, but divisive differences, that's what's going to kill us off. And that's, I think, the message that comes down from the past. Whether it's a correct message or not, the message is we, a former civilization, made a terrible mistake, and it resulted in a cataclysm that brought us down. I think we need to realize that can happen again, and that we are most likely to be the cause of that cataclysm ourselves. There may be a danger of further comet impacts. The Younger Dryas comet fragments, it's called the Taurid meteor stream. The Earth passes through it twice a year, in June and in October, November. There are hundreds of deadly objects in the Taurid meteor stream. It could happen, but I think a much more likely way that we're going to bring our civilization back almost to the Stone Age is nuclear war. We're going to do it to ourselves. Unless we wake up, unless we become more conscious of what it is to be a human being, of the privilege and the gift of being a human being, and how that privilege of gift belongs to every human being, not just to us. But I don't know how that's going to be done. I do think psychedelics can play a role. I've said many times, and I'll say it again, if I had the power to do so, I would insist that every world leader has at least a dozen sessions of ayahuasca before they even apply for the job.
Because you believe that would give them the same feeling of oneness that
I think most of them wouldn't apply for the job at all.
Oh, really?
And those who did would probably do a much better job. Because they'd understand themselves better.
Graham, what is the most important thing we haven't discussed as it relates to our past and what it might teach us, or how it might inform how we choose to live our lives today, that we haven't discussed?
Look, the most important thing as far as I'm concerned is independent inquiry. We need to start thinking for ourselves, and that's true of the past, and it's true of everything else. To the extent that I do get positive feedback from young people, and I do a lot, that feedback is, thank you for being an example to question everything.
Mm-hmm.
It happens that what I'm questioning is the past, but that can be a model for questioning everything. I feel that very poor journalism being used to smear my name because I asked questions and because I asked them vigorously and because, most important of all, I reached a large audience. That's it, really. They won't smear your name if you don't reach a large audience. You're not worth their trouble.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
But I think
know you do.
But, for me, my thing has always been that all it's done is made me clearer. Like, if you have a bigger platform, more people watching you, etc., and talking about you. All it's done for me is made me clearer on my principles and what I believe.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really thankful for that in a weird way.
Yeah.
Because you're forced to, when you hear so many things said about you, written about you, whatever, it does focus one mind on, okay, like, who am I?
Yeah.
And what matters? What am I? Where am I uncompromising in terms of the conversations I want to have, the way I want to do it? And that's given me a huge amount of clarity. And one of the things that I really want to make sure is that it doesn't make me bitter or resentful in any way.
Very important.
And you can see how it happens.
Yeah, I can absolutely see how it happens.
Because you have to live with this sort of injustice potentially, or being mischaracterized or whatever. So it's easy to see how one can slip off into bitterness and resentment.
Yeah. That's a big part of the work I'm doing on myself at the moment. I'm confident that I am doing the right thing with my life. I'm doing no harm to anyone, and I'm putting ideas out there that are worth thinking about. I'm confident of that. I have no doubts about that.
And what will you care about on your last day?
Most of all, the love of my family. That's the most important thing to me. And I don't know, the feeling that I did my best. I did the best I could to carry out the task that fell upon me, quite by accident. I was a current affairs journalist in the 1980s. I had no idea I was going to go down this rabbit hole into the ancient world. It was a series of accidents that led to it. But having gone down it, I feel very, very, very committed to it.
It's interesting because one of the ways
I have to see what Ricardo's saying is coincidence takes planning. We could say accidents take planning in this case. No doubt.
Is that I've always chosen to conduct my interviews is just to judge people as I find them. I remember once upon a time I had Brian Johnson coming on my podcast, and he has some radical beliefs about living forever, etc. He's the longevity guy. And I remember one of my team members walking up to me beforehand and saying, before he had arrived, and saying, "What do you think of him?" And I remember saying, "I have no idea. I've not met him yet."
Yeah.
And then I sat down with him, had this interview, and he said this thing to me at the end of the interview where he goes, "Thank you." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Thank you. This is the first time I've done an interview in my life where the interviewer had like no preconceptions of me." And he goes, "It meant that I was relaxed and able to be myself and blah, blah, blah." And
It's New Becca.
Rhymes with Rebecca. It's New Becca.
Are you challenging my authority?
You have no authority.
Young Washington in theaters July.
And I say that because
mainly said from, probably nothing about the gentleman, but sort of by nature, right? The same way that I might knee-jerk recoil at some rich elite person, coming around telling me what for, or what to do is sort of, right? It's the same way I kind of react to somebody that's interested or seemingly, as this gentleman, sort of obsessed with human longevity, Again, that to me just reeks of disconnection from the spiritual realities. So I tend to sort of have a knee jerk, nothing personal against the gentleman. Haven't really checked him out.
My opinion of you is someone who is really curious about humanity and has this interesting idea that is really expansive for one's mind about what could have happened. And again, the net benefit for me of that is just expanding my mind in a way that makes me empathetic to other people.
Yeah.
Makes me feel like me and you aren't different.
Yeah.
Like I've met you today, but we're probably, we go back a long way. Maybe consciously we're the same, but in our history and our lineage, we are one of the same. And it also gives me a huge amount of respect for other living things, including my ancestors, in a way that you kind of think of your ancestors as these like monkeys that lived in trees potentially.
Yeah.
But actually hearing some of these stories makes me go, oh my gosh. And actually it gives me a huge sense of responsibility to leave this planet and this earth in a way that it's going to be good for, the future kids that will live 20,000 years from now in the future. And that will probably look at our fossil records and wonder.
I think those of us who have a platform do have a responsibility. Very, very, very definitely. I mean, we're living in this strange new world. This world was inconceivable even in the beginning of the 1990s. This world of communication that we live in now, and there's no doubt that this is where influence can be applied, and if that influence is encouraging all that's good in the human race, then that's really great. It's a wonderful thing. And if it's encouraging all that's dark and negative and cruel and unkind and vicious in the human race, because that's also out there on the internet, then it's not so good.
Graham, we have a closing tradition on the show where the last guest leaves the question for the next, not knowing who they're leaving it for. And the question...
Okay. All right, so we're at an hour 15, and that's going to leave, if I stop it here, the last 5 minutes is the localized shtick that this, and I don't mean that negatively, but like his thing that he does. So now you have the first hour and 17 minutes, and you have the last to go check out on your own if you want to, unless somebody starts bitching in chat. But I think we've seen every bit that pertains to, well, the interview. It looks like now they're just moving on. So I think at an hour 15, we'll take the opportunity to move on from that. I said at the beginning I might tell you a story of sort of how I found Graham's work and how he talks about accidents, There's one word for it, I guess. It's not the word I use, but it's a word. So I don't know. Let me see. I'm going to have to stop sharing with you guys. First of all, thank you, everybody that's been here. And now we'll see if we can, segue that into something. I don't really feel the need to segue it into too much. That went a direction I was, certainly not, I don't guess you expect. But, yeah. So you got to see me and an old man cry. Well, that's not value for your entertainment. I don't know what is, folks, So what am I thanking you for? You should be thanking me. You got to see a weird, hairy Bigfoot and an old man cry. I mean, job done. Fucking hang it up. Go home. Tell everybody it was awesome. I don't think we need official versions of events. Everyone knows. See, I'm gonna pretty much agree with you there. I really am. And whether you want to interpret that as we already know it, which I think, my experience, I'll put it this way, True. My experience around a fire, right? Spent a lot of time around like a little fire in front of me. It taught me that we've been around a fire for a long time, It chirps and pulls and knocks and wakens, parts of yourself that you didn't know were there when you spend a little time connecting with that ancient sort of, aspect of humanity. Something in this modern world we have forgotten completely about, right? Like completely. It's like almost a joke now, oh, we're going to go to the bonfire or, once on vacation, you might light a fire, go light yourself a fire every night for a year, and see what you learn about what's inside us, just as True was pointing out there. Yeah, how to remember indeed Well, one of these shows of finding things within and without will probably cover my experience with that question. But we're not going to get launched into it tonight, that's for sure. Because I'm trying to keep a sort of an hour and a half, vibe on this show. Mostly to keep me good at keeping it concise, because you all know that I could go on forever on all of these topics we have touched tonight, but I don't think I'm going to, because I don't want to really add too much to what that was, Yeah. If you want to see the first half where they talk about all the normal things you're used to seeing Mr. Hancock talk about, go check it out. It was great listening to it, and I liked the little visual stuff I saw. That guy did a pretty good job a real good job. The podcast host, you guys will like it. But other than that, I think we should let that stand, because that was some very beautiful and heavy stuff from somebody that's important to a lot of people he's never met. So there's not much I can add to that, except I was glad that you guys got a chance to see what I was saying, when I first decided whether or not I was going to take this dude's work to heart after my experience, with the folks in academia, how they what they wanted to do, right? And I needed to look to the man. Just as simple as that. From that experience on, I saw what I needed to see about the way the world was working and the people who control knowledge, right? And so I knew straight away that I wasn't even going to start to check out, until I checked out who this dude was. And, there you go. You got a good person. Yeah, and works it obviously, I don't know who he is, you know what I mean? Just as much as anybody can investigate from afar, but anybody that's worth their salt, and is authentic does a pretty good job of displaying that. It's not hard to read people these days with the amount of podcasts and videos and things that are out there, right? So that's it. Not that I recommend jumping to leaping to conclusions, although, I guess to be honest, I do. Isn't that what we're saying? True. Trust your instinct. Think long, think wrong. I have to check it out. One of these days I'm going to tell you. So I'll probably pick it up next time because it requires another video, and I'm liable to even get emotionally invested again. And one cry is enough per podcast, folks. Okay, it's enough for fucking me. Did you hear how much snot was in my big ass nose after that cry? I can breathe now. So we'll probably hold off on the story and how it all connected and how I sort of came across Graham Hancock's work not many years ago. It was after, I had located Mabilla, and after I had made attempts to see what the academic world was like in that regard. So I needed to go somewhere else. And I found this work that once I dove into it and realized, I didn't even realize that I was going to, when I'm first discovering this guy's work, I didn't even realize, that I was going down the antediluvian hole, But it prepared me well for my experience and for the things I started finding when life immediately moved me up to Central Alabama. And you guys, know my work as antediluvian Alabama from there on out, because obviously Mobilla's here in Central. So, yeah, I'm kind of skewed from watching that myself. I got a little emotionally twerked, would be one word. Why would he bring up Britney Spears when he's talking about such a sweet thing? And isn't she the one that twerked? I don't know. I told y'all it's fucking nuts up here. But my point is, I don't really feel like putting much else on that other than talking with you guys for a second. Yeah, I mean, we try, don't we, True? That's all we can do, man. That's absolutely all we can do. So, yeah, I'll hang out with you guys for a second because we're shooting for an hour and a half and we're at an hour 27. But I am gonna break out and I'm gonna show you the first video clip I ever saw, like before I had any idea who Graham Hancock was. And I'll just show you that, and then I'll tell you a story from way back in my life, like back when I was like about that acid time, like 21, 22. and you'll see how these happy little accidents, that when one wishes to be leading a guided life, leaning into spirit and not to material, as much of this conversation before we started was talking about, then one starts to read the world a lot differently. It's just the quickest and cleanest thing to say. And so these happy little accidents become something vastly different when you're trying to navigate by them, and by taking input from things that don't have bodies, as I said in the beginning, is how I term working with God and with all things spiritual, yeah. So I will show you guys that, and I will tell you that story. That might be a good opening for our next episode, or at least one of the 3 next week, because I kind of want to spend a little time on antediluvian Alabama and start sort of opening that back up, because I'm dedicating like 3 shows a week between Shaman and Philosopher and this one of reading DeSoto. So we've got that going. We're heavy in that. But the antediluvian is just, it also speaks to my soul. It's the reason it's also part of the work. And so I want to start prying that back open and get myself over to some rocks, some big stuff here in the real world that I haven't seen yet, and start bringing that to you guys. So I think that would be a nice starting point, is and resting all the different paths through the veil. Yeah, absolutely, Screw. Absolutely. So I think we'll save that. That's a nice segue, and gives us something to talk about here for a sec. So yeah, I'll do that. I'll open one show next week with sharing the first thing I ever saw with Graham Hancock in it, and how I sort of came to that, and the story from my life that made that just one of those moments where you're like, okay, I'm listening. I'm not gonna miss another turn. Fucking learned that shit. Fucking alcohol. Yeah. So as you can see, there's a good bit behind that. So that'll be a nice launching point. And that's all the planning I generally like to do for one show. So there's 1 out of 3 planned. Is we'll tell that story, and we'll start opening up the antediluvian can of worms and showing you what I found here on the ground in Alabama, and what I know, because I've stood on it and put my hands on it, is undoubtedly evidence of a civilization that, based on everything you're seeing, just knowing it all, had to come before the Younger Dryas, right, and then got destroyed, right? That's why I find remains of it. Pretty straightforward. Antediluvian Alabama. Okay, so now you see how it all fits together. And so probably not, probably not, but you're starting to. So next week, one of our episodes, guys, we will pick this thread back up. I was fortunate enough. I won't even tell that story. I'm going to save it all. I'm going to let this episode be what it was. You guys that were here saw it. If you didn't see it, go back and watch it, because it was cool. It was far more than that. Yeah, I don't even know that there's any words I want to say, honestly, regarding that, because I would just get emotional, But I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful that I decided to do what I did, which was pick up that interview where I'd stopped listening to it and just watch the end with you guys. I had no idea that's the way the end was going. So I'm glad I did it. And I'm glad I got to share it all with you guys. And there's nothing much more to add, other than I'm really excited that we can sort of pick up right here. And anything I might have to want to say, I can then do, having fully thought about it. But that was just beautiful. So thank you is all I will say to that. And we got to have good examples, y'all. That's important in the people that we raise up. I'm not just like, you guys don't hear me talk about this, so I don't want to, any of you haters that are watching, there's probably not any, and I don't have enough attention, thank God. Okay, I'm cracking myself up. It's time to go. But yeah, yeah, that was unexpected, and I'm just very thankful that I got the experience and that we all got to share it together. And I'm very thankful, as always, to everybody that showed up. I haven't seen you in a bit, True. I mean, I know we holler at each other on private chat, but thank you very much for showing yourself and being part of the chat. As always, man, you and I think a lot alike, dude. Screwdriver, same to you, brother. Thank you very much. Friend from Dave's Multiverse. Dave, if you see this, thank you for the dedicated, man. Screw is not only knowledgeable and encouraging, but apparently we've got a few things in common regarding our experiences out there in the real world. That's beautiful. Amy, WC, thank you. Amy, Wicked Current. Moss, if you're still out there on your big screen, thank you very much for staying with us through that. And to everybody else, to our lurkers, to Sarah, to everyone that joined us, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, I look forward to getting back to this topic very much. It's obviously something that is close, very, very close to my heart. I mean, shit, it's the crux of my work, you know. And I don't just mean Graham, right? Obviously, his work was vital to getting me prepared for where I was heading, you know. So I'm just excited. I'm excited to get back there, and I'm excited that it timed out where we could watch this together. And we could wish Graham all the best. I'm sure the surgery will be just a snap and a sneeze, and we can't wait to read that next book. That's what I'm fucking on about. In the beginning of this interview, guys, if you watch it, you know, Graham used the words himself, you know, that he sees what he's doing as a calling, as any of us who are rightly invested in what we're doing, you know, see it. So callings aren't made and left incomplete. That would be silly. Good night, my friends. Thank you very much for joining us. Love you guys. And I'm going to be on all this weekend, reading and doing roundtable and all the usual stuff, doing Mars Disclosure Sunday. Dave wants to look at the new UFO stuff sometime first of next week. And Ricardo and I will be back to reading with you guys. And, of course, I'll be doing this show 3 times next week. We'll see you then.